James chose to confront the danger head-on rather than run from it. He no longer wanted to live in constant fear, hiding his wife and child in remote places. He believed that if evil wasn't uprooted completely, it would inevitably return, stronger, more ruthless, and more destructive than before. Something in his gut told him John, with all his cunning and cruelty, was just a pawn. Behind him, there had to be someone else, someone more powerful, more dangerous, a mastermind pulling the strings from the shadows. And then, a twist no one expected appeared. Tongue, a name once close to James's heart, a brother in arms from their early ventures, someone James had trusted with his life. But in time, Tongue turned. He betrayed James, sided with John, and even secretly tried to get close to Dieppe while James was entangled in legal trouble. And now, Tongue suddenly reached out, requesting a private meeting with James and Dieppe at a quiet, secluded cafe. His eyes looked different. Gone was the arrogance, gone was the cold mask he used to wear. In its place, a flicker of something James hadn't seen in years. "I'm an undercover officer," Tongue said, voice low but steady. "I've infiltrated John's network for the past 2 years, and now I need your help to bring down the entire operation behind him." The air felt still. James tightened his grip on the coffee cup, eyes locked onto Tongue. A part of him wanted to believe that his old friend still had a conscience, still stood on the side of light. But another part could never forget the pain, the scars, the betrayal. This moment wasn't just a chance, it was a test. Could James trust Tongue one more time? Was this yet another trap? Or was it the final key to unlocking the truth? And if James chose to join forces with Tongue, what would their counterstrike look like? Who would be the next target? Would Dieppe once again be dragged into the heart of a dangerous game? The story is reaching a turning point no one can predict, and this decision might change everything. Don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of the thrilling developments we're about to unfold. The real game is about to begin, and the mastermind behind it all might be closer than we think. After all the storms they had weathered, James and Dieppe finally thought they had found a fragile sense of peace. But they had no idea that behind the curtain of silence, John was far from finished. He was still lurking in the shadows, silently weaving his web, plotting to destroy James and his family, one calculated step at a time. Then, that familiar twinge in James's chest returned, a gut instinct he had learned never to ignore. And it told him Dieppe and their daughter were in danger. Without wasting a second, James sped off to the quiet countryside where Dieppe and the little girl had been hiding. It was a peaceful place, drenched in sunlight, filled with birdsong and the gentle murmur of a nearby stream. But James, that calm now felt like a thin veil, one that could be ripped away by a storm at any moment. As soon as the car stopped, James threw open the door and ran toward the house, his voice echoing urgently. "Dieppe, where are you?" 1 second, 2 seconds. "I'm in the kitchen," Dieppe's voice called back, warm and calm like a soft breeze. Only then did James let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. He rushed toward the kitchen where Dieppe was preparing lunch. Their daughter sat nearby, playing with scraps of colored paper by the window. Sunlight streaming through the leaves casting gentle shadows across her cheeks. Serene, innocent, safe. By noon, the sun had climbed to its highest point. The three of them gathered around the table for lunch, laughter filling the air. For a brief moment, James almost forgot about the weight of the world outside, the conspiracies, the danger, the enemies closing in. But then, the phone rang. The screen lit up with a name James hadn't seen in a long time. Tung. James froze. His hand tightened around the phone. That name, once so familiar, had long been erased from his trust. Tung. Once a brother in arms, someone who had stood by him through the early, rough days. But then, he turned. He betrayed James, sided with John, and even tried to get close to Dieppe while James was entangled in legal trouble. A knife in the back. And now, out of nowhere, Tung was calling. Why now? James glanced at Dieppe and their daughter laughing softly beside him. He knew a call like this could never be just a coincidence. James stared silently at the screen, his eyes filled with suspicion. Dieppe stood beside him, sensing the hesitation in her husband's gaze. She gently placed her hand on his shoulder as if to whisper without words, "Whatever it is, I'll always be by your side." Finally, James answered the call. "I want to meet you, and Dieppe too." Tung's voice came through, deep and slow, unlike the tone that used to keep James awake at night. "What's left to talk about?" James replied curtly, trying to stay calm. "It's important. About John and the one behind him." A moment of silence. "We need to meet, just the three of us, the Lakeside Cafe, this afternoon." That afternoon, the sun was softer than usual. James and Dieppe sat in their car, parked just a few steps from the small cafe. Neither had spoken during the drive. Only the sound of heartbeats and unanswered questions lingered between them. Could this be a trap, or was it truly a turning point? They walked in. Tung was already there, sitting quietly with a half-empty cup of coffee. When he saw them, he stood up. His eyes no longer held the coldness they once did. Now there was something else. Remorse and hope. "Thank you for coming," Tung said, his voice strangely warm and calm. James and Dieppe sat down, but their eyes were still guarded. "I owe you both the truth," Tung began, leaning slightly forward, lowering his voice like even the wind shouldn't overhear. "I'm an undercover officer." The air seemed to freeze. Dieppe held her breath. James stared at Tung, disbelief written across his face. "I was assigned to investigate John and the powerful figure behind him. Everything I did, even the betrayal you believed, was part of a long-term infiltration." Dieppe clutched James's hand tightly. James remained silent, but his eyes screamed, "Why now? Why choose such a cruel way to do your duty?" Tung nodded as if hearing that unspoken question. "I understand. You have every right not to believe me, but I endured everything. Your hatred, Dieppe's slap, even watching your family nearly fall apart, all to gain their trust. I couldn't afford to slip. One moment of softness, and it would have all been over." James sighed deeply. He lowered his head, torn between the old pain and the slowly growing sympathy. Then Dieppe softly spoke. I'm sorry for thinking you were the worst kind of traitor. I even wished I'd never met you." Tung let out a faint, bitter laugh. "No, I should be the one apologizing for letting that pain last as long as it did." A long silence followed. No one said a word. The breeze drifted through, carrying the faint aroma of coffee. At last, James asked, "So why now? Why come to me today?" Tung lifted his gaze, his eyes lit with resolve. "Because I can't do this alone anymore. John is about to make his move. The one behind him is accelerating the plan. If we don't act together, it'll be too late." "What do you need me to do?" James asked plainly. "We're going to expose them. I have evidence. I know the network. But I need someone inside. Someone who understands how John works. Someone who can reach certain critical links. And I know you're the only one with enough reason not to give up." James turned to Dieppe. She gave a soft nod, her smile saying everything. This time, trust. One more time. James looked back at Tung. "All right, I'll work with you. But if you betray me again, I won't wait for the law." Tung nodded, no resistance in his eyes. "And I'll be the first to accept whatever comes if I break your trust again." The three of them sat there for a long time, talking, planning. There was no more suspicion, only determination and a quiet promise to bring back the light, even if it meant walking through the darkest shadows. Will James and Tung's plan succeed? Can justice truly triumph over evil when trust and life itself are traded for blood and tears? No one knows the answer. From the very moment James shook hands with Tung again, the man once seen as a traitor, everything shifted. A silent war had begun, where every step could be a trap, every word a concealed blade, and every glance a flicker of fire waiting to ignite chaos. Tung chose the most dangerous path, to become an undercover agent among wolves. He walked deep into John's den, into the heart of a dark empire, living amidst lies, betrayal, and cold-blooded cruelty. He witnessed deranged schemes unfold, from money laundering to illegal smuggling, even ruthless assassinations of those who dared stand in the way. As for James, he was no longer just a husband or a father, but an integral part of a plan to dismantle the criminal empire from within. He had to return to old connections, pretend to be someone willing to partner with John, and infiltrate the inner circle, all while placing himself and his family in the line of fire. Each time James left home, he glanced back at Dieppe and their daughter. He never said it out loud, but his eyes always held a quiet ache, as if trying to memorize the last moments of peace, just in case they were the last smiles he'd ever see. But evil never sleeps. John, the cunning old fox, had never fully trusted anyone. He started watching Tung more closely. A lingering look, a careless word, or even a phone turned off at the wrong time. Any one of those could spark suspicion, and James, the deeper he got, the more he uncovered. Behind John lurked another force, more dangerous, more brutal, and far more elusive. Someone even John bowed to. But who was this shadowy figure? Why were they so determined to destroy James at all costs? What made one quiet, loving family like James, Dieppe, and their daughter become the target of such a powerful and merciless darkness? Just when peace seemed to return, danger crept in closer than ever. Will Tung be exposed? Will John find out that Tung is the undercover cop embedded within his criminal organization? And if he does, will Tung even have a chance to make it out alive with the truth? Can James protect his life, and more importantly, protect Dieppe and their child, while playing this deadly game of chess where a single wrong move could cost everything? The answers lie ahead. The web of conspiracy tautens with every passing day. The path becomes darker, and time is running out. Stay tuned for the next episode, where truths will begin to surface, but so will the true face of darkness, more terrifying than ever before. Don't forget to follow and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the thrilling twists and unexpected turns in the episodes to come. Because this story is just getting started.
Liệu kế hoạch của James và Tùng có thành công? Liệu công lý có thể chiến thắng được cái ác khi cuộc sống và niềm tin được đánh đổi bằng máu và nước mắt? Không ai biết được câu trả lời, bởi từ giây phút James bắt tay trở lại với Tùng, người từng bị xem là kẻ phản bội, mọi thứ đã bước sang một trang hoàn toàn khác. Một trận chiến thầm lặng bắt đầu, nơi từng bước đi đều có cái bẫy, từng lời nói đều có những dao đong và từng ánh nhìn cũng có những mồi lửa thiêu rụi tất cả. Tùng đã chọn con đường nguy hiểm nhất, làm nội gián giữa lòng bầy sói. Anh từng bước vào hang ổ của John và thực hiện và thế lực đằng sau hắn, sống giữa giả dối, phản bội và máu lạnh. Anh chứng kiến những kế hoạch điên rồ được vẽ ra, những phi vụ rửa tiền, buôn lậu, thậm chí là thủ tiêu những người dám cản bước. Còn James giờ đây không chỉ là một người chồng, một người cha, mà là một phần không thể thiếu trong kế hoạch lật đổ thế lực ngầm này. Anh phải quay lại những mối quan hệ cũ, giả vờ trở thành người muốn bắt tay với John, cố gắng tiếp cận các mắt xích quan trọng, nhưng cũng chính là đặt bản thân mình vào nguy hiểm bất cứ lúc nào.